Hello friends, in this lecture video, we will create a virtual environment where we'll perform all the work related to this particular course. Now you may ask what on earth is this virtual environment? So when you installed Anaconda in the previous lecture video and when you open Anaconda prompt, you will see a base written here, right? So that means that Anaconda has created a base environment for you, right? So now whichever library you want to install, right, it will be installed in the base environment, right? So what can go wrong with that, right? So say you're working on different projects, one a data science project, one a quant finance project, right? One a physics project. The problem is that if you installed a library say 6 months ago and now you have started working on a quant finance project and now you want to install another library, right? The problem is that this new library may have a dependence on the previous library that you had already installed, right? But when you install this new library, it will install a newer version, the latest version of the library that you had installed 6 months ago, right? So the code that you have written 6 months ago on based on the library that you just installed, it may not work, right? Because whenever new libraries happen, function calls keep getting deprecated or they keep making changes, right? That's the problem with open source libraries, is that with new version release, uh, your code may not run. That's the problem. So it's always recommended that you create different environments for different projects that you're working on, right? And creating new virtual environment is a child's play these days, right? So just use this command conda create name, name of the virtual environment. So let's call it quant. You can have whatever name that you want, right? And then you will have to mention which Python do you want to use, right? So Python 3.8, I think Python 3.9 has already been released, but I'll go with Python 3.8 because it's a stable version. I typically not go with the latest version of Python. I typically go with the last stable version, right? It's just a habit. So once we run this command, you will see that it's telling you what is the current version of Conda. You can get a newer version. I don't really want a newer version. And as you can see, it is telling you that the following packages will be downloaded if you want to create this virtual environment. So these are the libraries that will be installed by default when you create this new virtual environment, right? So when you'll at the end of this, when we create this virtual environment, you'll already have these libraries installed. And what are these libraries? Pip, Python 3.8, setup tools, SQLite, these are some of the basic libraries that you need to create any virtual environment, right? So I am okay with this. So I'll just say yes and I'll hit enter. And now it will install all these libraries and their dependencies, right? So I am going to forward this lecture video. So as you can see, all these libraries have been installed and your environment has been created. Hooray, congratulations, you have created a brand new virtual environment, right? And you can see that Conda is prompting you some of the commands, right? So what it's saying that by default, if you open Anaconda prompt, it will open in a base environment, right? All you'll have to do to kind of activate an environment is to run this command conda activate the name of the environment. But before that, let me actually show you how you can get the list of all the environments that you have created in your system, right? So that's pretty straightforward. All you will have to do is run this command, right? Conda info two hyphens and ends, right? It will tell you all the environments that are installed in your system, right? So I have 4 environments, right? And most of my work is quant finance related. So most of my, you can see that everything is pretty much dedicated to the same area, right? So how do you activate this quant environment that you have already created? All you'll have to do is do conda activate quant, right? And when you run it, you will see that now my environment is quant, right? So now if you install something, right? So now if you do a pip install or conda install, whatever, right? Now that library will be installed in the Quant virtual environment, right? So the first library that you need to install is the IDE, right? There are a number of IDEs like Spider, like Jupyter Notebook, like PyCharm, right? I would strongly recommend you that you install Spider, right? So one when you download it and when you install Anaconda, Spider. This is the icon of Spider IDE. It was already installed in your system in the base environment by default, right? But we won't be able to use that because we have created a new virtual environment. So we'll have to install Spider IDE as well. And every time again, like I mentioned, just Google how to install a library. What's the command? Mostly it is pip install or conda install, right? But because we have created this environment in conda, uh, I would recommend that you install packages using conda, right? So let us see what is the command for conda install spider, right? So if we go to the command that is required, right? So conda install -c anaconda spider, right? So let me run this. So once you have installed your IDE, in our case Spider, the way to launch it is that once you have activated your virtual environment, just type Spider and press enter, right? But the problem is that, for example, if I'll run it, I'll get an error. Why? Because I already have an instance of Spider running, right? So it's saying that Spider is already running. So if you have launched the Spider IDE from any other environment, right? So you will have to run this command, spider new instance, right? So if you launch this, right, if you will run this, then a new instance of spider will be launched for your particular environment, right? So just keep that in mind. In addition, you will have to install main libraries, popular libraries like pandas, like pip install pandas. What else? NumPy. So NumPy will be installed when you install pandas, anyways, right? Matplotlib, right? So as we will progress through the course, I'll tell you which libraries to install, and please just open your Anaconda prompt, enter the virtual environment if you have created the virtual environment, and then install whatever library we are talking about, right? When you're installing a particular library, just keep one thing in mind, that if you say run conda install pandas or whatever, and if you run this particular command, it will install the latest version of pandas in your system, right? I would strongly urge you that you use the same version of the library that I have used while creating this particular course. Why? Because if you use a different version, like we have discussed before, the different version can have certain changes that will impact the code that I'll share, right? So if you can troubleshoot, that's great, but if it will save both of us a lot of time if you're using the same library version that I use, right? So all you'll have to do is just use a double equal to and then just provide whichever version I am using. So I'll give you a list of library versions that I have used. It would be great if you can install the same versions when you are installing the library. You also need to, if you want to deactivate this particular environment, if you want to come out of this environment, either just close this or just do conda deactivate quant, right? Deactivate quant, and it will go back to base. Okay, sorry, just conda deactivate. I typically don't use this command because I just close it, right? So you see that we have came back to quant, right? So this is how we create virtual environment. If you don't want to create virtual environment, that's fine. Uh, Even with the base environment, you should be fine. But if you create it, that's slightly better. And I would recommend you to create it, right? Because that will help you uh, avoid a lot of backward compatibility issues and some other issues that you may face. But even if you don't create a virtual environment, that's fine, right? So if you're facing any problem pertaining to creating virtual environment, post it in the Q&A section and I'll do my best to resolve it. Thanks a lot. I'll see you in the next lecture video.